I had fertility issues with my son, and this led me on quite a transformative journey. I wanted to become pregnant in the most natural way I possibly could, which was through acupuncture, Chinese medicine, natural IVF, which is lower doses of hormones, so you have a sort of lower birth defects in terms of the baby. And this was incredibly important for me, and it made me look at my whole entire life in terms of what I was doing for work and how I could change the impact I was having positively. And that's how House of Grey was born. My name's Louisa Grey. I'm founder of House of Grey. We are an interior design studio based in London, but we work globally. We specialise in circular salutogenic design. This house, for me, I would describe as a very nurturing space. It holds me, it nourishes me. I designed it to support my busy life, which I try not to be so busy with. I have lived in this house for over 5 years now. We bought it in the second pandemic, and it needed a lot of love and a lot of care, even though the previous owners lived here for 50 years. The house is a 4-storey house, and it's quite unusual because it has 4 floors and then it has 4 little separate floors on the right-hand side. So it kind of looks much smaller from the outside. It's 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 reception rooms, a lounge room and 2 kitchens, which sounds a bit excessive, but the second kitchen's more of a utility room. I like to be able to keep my washing out of the way of everything in the main space. There's a lot of storage here, basically, which is wonderful. Because our focus is a circular salutogenic design, which basically means the products that we specify are fully circular, so they come from the ground and then can go back into the ground, so they don't contain any acrylics or polyester, and that's where our kind of focus is. And it also means that the products we work with don't off-gas, so in terms of with volatile organic compounds which have been related to cancer, carcinogenic, that brings a quietness and because you don't have any of the chemical scents when you come into the space, and I think that makes quite a lot of difference. We always have that feedback from clients that when we hand them the keys and we kind of go into hand their home over to them, they have always commented on the neutral scent, which you can never obviously feel on Instagram or understand, but it's just that's the quietness that brings the sense of just being, and I think that's very important. I'm very key also about using soundproofing in homes, because a lot of Victorian homes didn't have soundproofing, and it's quite disconcerting when you hear your neighbours or something happening. So I've always been quite aware of that, but I think that also has come from experience of moving houses and having different neighbours noise-wise. My aesthetic, or the studio aesthetic, definitely veers towards a very visually quiet aesthetic. And for me, that comes in the form of storage and not having too many things that you don't actually need around you. I think I've continually moved throughout my career. I've always had this plan. I had a 3-step plan, which was, London is very expensive to buy. And I bought my first property in Tottenham, which 20 odd years ago was quite edgy, to say the least, and I bought my house and I renovated it in the evenings, and I managed to rent rooms out, which enabled me to have my first space, and then it enabled me to have a deposit to then move into another space and then renovate that, which I did in the evenings again whilst working during the day, and then renovate that, and then again I moved on, and I think this is my 4th home. You realise how little you need, and it's important things are the people, the key pieces that you have that just bring you joy and that are comfortable, that bring that support. And I could just cathartically clear each time I moved, and that for me has been really transformative. It's very, very important for me to use the bones of a building, and that's what was so important about this project. It was a passion project. I'd been pitching to various different hotel groups because I wanted to renovate old building with the old ways, but in the new ways in terms of what we know. Nobody seemed very interested. This was pre-pandemic, so I'd spent a long time looking and doing my research and knowing the materials I wanted to use. And I had 2 guys here for 3 weeks on a tower with dental picks taking out all of the paint that had been put in the cornicing over years and years and years of paintwork. The central cornice in the back room, which would have been the room that guests would have been greeted, it was more the kind of like tea room, functioning room, which is absolutely beautiful. It's like 3.5 metre high ceilings, has been such a kind of labour of love for keeping the original features. And then a lot of the features were taken out and we've kind of re-put some of them in. So some of the cornicing was removed upstairs in the top bedrooms, and we reinstated it with plaster craftsman who was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then he stained it with tea so that we could knock it back and it didn't look so new, because I didn't want to use anything that was any dyes or stains that weren't natural. I'm definitely drawn to symmetry. I had a conversation with my son as we walked to school this morning. He said, "What's your favourite number, 1 or 2?" And I said, 2, 100%. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because it's balance. It represents to me balance in life. It doesn't tip one way or the other way." We've spent many years working with clients and managing expectations that part of the natural world is imperfect, and you have to embrace those imperfections. It's one of our values and philosophies within the studio. I don't mind if wood flooring has a chip taken out of it because something happened or someone dropped something. You have to live in a house. It has to be forgivable. It had so much more work to do to it than I'd actually anticipated. So the art of patience, that things take time, that you can't rush things, and that things will happen when they should do, is definitely an element that I've learnt from this house. I think there have been points in my life where I realised that you have to have a level of balance and that you can be challenged, and sometimes life can be more challenging than you'd like it to be. And I found journaling, I would say I'm quite spiritual, doing my tarot cards, which I do quite regularly, probably every other day, have been something that have kept me quite grounded in terms of my practice. And I've been journaling now for probably 12 or 13 years. People normally go along with their lives, but they don't actually think about what they want out of their life. And journaling has given me that platform where I can think, okay, this is what I'd like to happen in 6 months. This is what I'd like to happen in 7 months. And the weirdest thing is that every time I do it, something happens positively. If you manifest things, they happen. I'm such a believer in that. If you put it out there, the energetics pull that thing to you. I feel like that with my son. I was given a 10% chance. I had 1 egg and that was him. And he's perfect. But don't tell him that. We have an extensive selection in our materials library of wood, stones, but then we also have new innovating ones where materials are made out of discarded rice, which is a really amazing one. And then they're 3D printed. We've got a light in the materials library which has been 3D printed, because I think there's so much waste that comes from food. I have gratitude for creating a life where my son is my priority. I realised when he was young that if he became ill, I needed to be in a work environment that would allow for that flexibility. And that obviously has happened since the pandemic. But at the time, I was definitely in a career that would have been difficult to be there for my son, take him to school, pick him up, be here if he was ill. And now my day is it's wonderful. I literally walked downstairs to the studio. I'm always pretty much at my desk before everyone else comes in, but I use that time, I use that space to be able to kind of work on things that creative ideas that I always have. I'll always have things that no one in the studio knows that I'm working on. And then they'll always be surprised when I say, this is what we're doing. And they're like, how did that happen? And I'm like, aha. I love it. I don't see it as work. And I think it's been always about creating the life that you really, really want. Life shouldn't be just a holiday twice a year or once a year. You know, your life should be as you want it to be. Nostalgia to me would be something that brings you the warmth, that makes you feel secure. And those moments for me would be memories of being with my grandmother and cooking with her. Very, very simple things. Good food, good company, and being in a very safe environment. And those little moments that you have can actually make you feel quite emotional.